I've been asked numerous times to compare these two slings and put them head to head. We've got the City Sling 3 from Aer, the newly updated version, and the Civic Access Sling 2-liter from EVERGOODS. So I'm gonna walk you through both of these. We'll do a comparison. I'm not doing full reviews. I've done full reviews on both of these before. We're gonna be comparing and contrasting them. And I'll tell you which one I prefer and why. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Pack and Roam. If you're new to the channel, I'm Kevin, and we're gonna be putting these two slings head to head. So let's dive right into that today. So I'm gonna cover materials and specs, get that out of the way right off the bat. And material-wise, for the Civic Access Sling 2-liter, we have EVERGOODS Custom 840D Ballistic Nylon 6.6, and their normal standard mesh, breathable mesh panel on the back. So as of right now, as far as I know, that's the only option currently available for this in material. Whereas we've got a couple different options for the City Sling 3. So this one is the Ultra version, which is super cool. I really love Ultra material. There's also a 1680D ballistic nylon version, and then there is a X-Pack version as well. So you have a couple different material options on this right now, which in my opinion gives it a slight edge over the Civic Access Sling 2-liter because I do like the material options. I'm a big fan of X-Pack. I also really like Ultra. So slight edge there on that. You know, those upgraded material options then too, like the Ultra version, come with coated zippers, where you're not getting that on the Civic Access Sling. You've got standard reverse coil zippers on here, which slight edge on the material side, I would say. And I like having coated zippers. You know, a lot of times I'm carrying around content creation gear. Sometimes some of that gear is not waterproof, so I do like that this offers a little bit more protection from the elements than this does in terms of the standard materials available. All right, so dimension-wise, for the Civic Access Sling 2-liter, we're looking at 11 inches by 5.5 inches by 3 inches of depth. So you got 3 inches this way. On the City Sling 3, we've got 13 inches by 5 inches, and then we get that same 3 inches of width, although that looks like it's a lot more than 3 inches the way I have it stuffed out right now. But anyway, what you'll see when we get farther into this is that even though this one is stated, the stated width is a little bit wider, the usable space inside of this one is actually wider. All right, so with materials and specs out of the way, let's get into design, exterior, interior, and take the comparison there. So right now I have this one loaded out with what I would consider a fairly typical loadout for me. So I'm probably pushing the limits of this sling and what I've got in here, and you can see how wide it is. So it's really fat. You've got these, you know, the built-in compression on this, which you don't see on the EVERGOODS, kind of like you see on Bellroy almost, you know, all right? So if you pull these, in theory, it should kind of compress itself, but you're not going to get a whole lot of compression the way I have this stuffed out because everything I have in there is solid. So what we're going to do, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to show you what it looks like on me with this amount of gear in there. Then we're going to take the gear out. I'll show you what I have in there. And we're going to reload the Civic Access Sling with the same gear so you can see how this one loads out different. All right, so first let's put this one on. So let me move the chair out of the way. Front carry is going to look like this on me. And it's not bad. It's comfortable. It does feel like it sticks out quite a bit because it does. And we've got it really stuffed out. And I think, you know, walking around like this is definitely going to want to, all this weight is going to want it to, I'm sorry, it's going to cause it to slide for sure, especially with this really slick seatbelt style strap. All right, so side carry for this type of sling, not really an option, right? I mean, it's just not designed for that. It wants to sit vertically. So back carry looks like this. Now this, to me, is not nearly as comfortable as front carry with this much in there. It really feels like it wants to rotate off of my back, and it just feels like a big mass in my lower back. So Not something I would recommend doing is stuffing it out like this and put it on your back. It does not conform to the curve in my spine whatsoever. And just feels like I'm basically carrying a steel bar. So not super comfortable in this configuration for back carry. Front carry though, I keep hitting the mic. Front carry though, that doesn't feel too bad. It actually feels pretty good. So if you're gonna carry it like this loaded out, okay. I think that's doable. All right, so let's do this, and I wanna try to keep this to a reasonable amount of time here. So I'm gonna go through relatively quickly, but let's pull what I got out in here. All right, so this is typical stuff. We've got car keys in this front pocket. I've got a Leatherman in that pocket, and I don't always carry a Leatherman, but sometimes I do. So we're doing a semi-realistic loadout of this. If we open the main compartment, obviously this is where the bulk of the gear is going to be. So I've got my Insta360 in here, which I carry quite a bit. The selfie stick for that, which I believe this one's about 9 inches in width, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm going to put that back in so you can see how it fits when I take everything out. I do have some hand sanitizer in there. A couple odds and ends. So this is an Olight little mini bit driver, which is kind of cool. I've got a beer bomb from Big Papa from Notorious EDC. Never know when you're going to have to crack a cold one. I've got the Peak Design MagSafe tripod phone stand thingy. So that's with me quite a bit. I have an Anker 10K battery bank. I've got my AirPods. AirPods are critical. Those are with me quite a bit. I don't have anything in this pocket, but I may have separated some of the stuff that's in back to that pocket, but it's kind of going to fit the same anyway. I've got my Grip 6 wallet in there, a couple screen wipes, a body wipe from Clean Freak, and that is it for the main compartment. Tucked back here, I've got my phone. So this is actually my prop phone. This is an older phone. This is a standard iPhone 13, not the Max size. So my iPhone 15 Pro Max, though, does fit in there, obviously, no problem. But that's it. So that's everything I had in there. And I mean, that's quite a bit of stuff. So probably a little bit more than I would suggest carrying in this bag, but pretty typical in terms of loadout for me. So the only thing, maybe I don't necessarily need to have this and a bit driver, so maybe it's one or the other, but I do like having the Leatherman on me. So this might be considered superfluous. So maybe I didn't need this, but even without that, it's still a pretty sizable loadout. And then in addition, to be honest with you, usually I would have my Pocket 3 with me as well. And then maybe even the Neo drone. So the Pocket 3 I'm using these days for my overhead shots. So couldn't really use it in the setup, but it wasn't gonna fit in there. So I was definitely not putting the Pocket 3 in there with the rest of the stuff. All right, so let's put that in the Civic Access Sling 2-liter. As a matter of fact, let me do this really quick too. So stated width is 13 inches, but you can see it's a little bit, so you're barely, that barely fits end to end inside there. And with it loaded out, it can actually be a little tough to get in and get it all the way on the bottom. So it feels like you've got about maybe 9.5 inches of usable width in there. Even though the outside dimensions show 13 inches, which I guess, are they including these? Well, whatever. Same loadout in here. We're gonna throw that in the Civic Access Sling. So now this goes in, no problem. You've got probably, I don't know, what would you say? You got at least an inch to spare on the inside there. So usable width of this seems definitely larger. Now some of the stuff like this is gonna go in here, and this is just kind of a dump area. We're gonna throw my keys in here too. Now I think the keys don't capture and separate as well on this, so they're gonna lose some points for that, because this one you've got that kind of separated pocket where your keys aren't gonna commingle with the other stuff you've got in there. We don't have this in here. The Civic Access Sling design is fundamentally different in that you've got organization separated from kind of a bulk dump area. So this is gonna be for bulky stuff. This is gonna be where your larger items can go, whereas this is your organization area. And you do, I mean, you've got a little bit of volume built into there. This is completely different. This one, you've got organization and bulk storage basically sharing a space, which there's nothing wrong with that fundamentally. It just really depends on how you use your gear. So loading that all up in the CAS2, we've got kind of the loose items along with the Leatherman in this back area. So it's all kind of just dumped in there. I've got the MagSafe tripod in this pouch. I've got the titanium gear, so the bit driver and the big papa from Notorious EDC in there. This side, we've got my wallet laying down in that pocket. AirPods easily accessible, both of these easily accessible. The 10K battery, and then the phone all next to it. So this, I mean, it's relatively tight, but that's doable, no problem. You can see we are eating up a little bit of the space on the interior. We're gonna drop the hand sanitizer in there. And if you'll notice, we've still got quite a bit of room in there. I mean, I could probably put a pair of gloves in there. I'm pretty sure I can get my DJI Pocket 3 in there. Could almost get the Neo in there. I wonder if we can get this Neo in there. Now, that's gonna be a bridge too far, but I think we could get the Pocket 3 in there. If I want to take my little portable ouch pouch, I can still get that in there. And again, this isn't the most, I'm not sure this is exactly how I would lay it out, just kind of throwing it all in there right now, but this is profile-wise very similar to what we saw in there. So let's see how this one carries. All right, so I would say front carry. Very similar feeling to that, although this one does feel a little bit, I don't know, it definitely feels like it's trying to pull down a little bit more than this one does. Whereas this, I think this mesh has a little bit more grip on my t-shirt than this mesh. So this one feels like it wants to slide right off the bat. Same thing with this. You're not doing side carry with this because it's just not shaped to do it. And then if you pull it around to the back, largely the same. So this one does feel a little bit more comfortable for back carry, but pretty much the same concept. So it's kind of where we are right now. And it's really two different modes, I would say, of design, right? So this one, again, we're combining the organization with the capacity. This one, we're kind of separating the capacity from the organization. So I think this edges out this, so the CAS2 edges out the City Sling 3 in capacity, it would seem. So I feel like I could fit more in here. But then because we have actually more organization overall in this one, I feel like I can get a little bit more separation in my gear. So, I mean, they're both very similar in what you're gonna put in there. Again, I think this one, I can fit slightly more in, but you see, I mean, all that organization stuff is really eating into that pocket anyway. So even though we've got this design of separation between organization and bulk, you're still, you know, if you're overstuffing the organization area, you're eating into your bulk anyway. This one, they're kind of just, it's intentionally combined. And then because there's more pockets and more slip pockets, I can provide a little bit more separation from my gear in this one, which I actually do prefer. Typically, you know, in a backpack, I prefer less organization and I want to organize modularly myself. In a sling though, the sling to me functions as an organization and as a modular component. So I do tend to prefer a little bit more organization in my slings. Now I would say for me personally, I do prefer the Aer City Sling slightly over the Civic Access Sling 2. So dimension wise, this one's a little bit, you got a little bit less usable width in there, but it gets what I need to get in there perfectly. And then it keeps everything nicely separated. Whereas this one, I'm definitely gonna have some stuff banging around together. So keys obviously are commingling. You know, that's a pain point for me, is that anything I put in this bulk area is mingling with my keys. So if you're just carrying gloves and extra clothing and stuff like that, soft goods inside there, not a problem at all. If you're carrying expensive tech, like Pocket 3 cameras or 360 cameras, might not be the ideal solution for you. I like how we can keep them segregated in this front pocket in there, and then also still have a little bit more storage. So I would prefer, again, to me, slight edge goes to the City Sling 3 from Aer. And then aside from volume, and we're not going to focus on materials because we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here. You know, this one, if we're looking at base model to base model, which wouldn't be the Ultra in this, price is very similar. Right now at the time of filming, this is $10 more expensive in their 840D than the Aer City Sling in 1680D is. So pretty comparable, slight price edge to the Aer 3. A couple other things though that are outside of materials and are in design. The design of this is we have a fully removable strap on the Aer City Sling, which means you can swap it out more easily if you want a different strap, or you can get a longer or shorter strap. So that's, to me, a slight edge as well. The Aer put this this little hang loop on there, which I really like. I think that's a cool feature. We do have a grab handle on the City Sling. We have no grab handle on the Civic Access Sling, which not a huge deal to me, but it is nice to have that for taking it on and off, maybe hanging it up also by a different means so that it's not, if you want to hang it vertically, you have that option. Or horizontally, I should say. So, I mean, overall, again, the edge goes to the Aer City Sling 3 for me. And then if you did want to roll with a smaller loadout, they're both going to be slimmer, obviously, but you've got the built-in kind of compression system. So let's see if I have this loaded out with less stuff or not, is for, you know, when you pull it tight, it's going to want to slim itself down a little bit, and it carries significantly differently. And then overall, I'd say, you know, footprint wise, very similar in that respect. So that's where I'm at on the Civic Access Sling 2-liter from EVERGOODS versus the City Sling 3-liter. What do you think? Have you tried either of these? Do you have both of them? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. What do you guys think? Definitely drop me a comment below, weigh in, and let me know if you like the Civic Access Sling better or the City Sling better. If you found this video useful, definitely hit the like button for me, and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks.